Thankfully, the D-backs were able to avoid the sweep courtesy of Brandon Pfaadt, but the offense still hit a new rock bottom against the Seattle Mariners.
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer. So please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com to see all of my latest work. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. From brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. On today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, we'll talk about the D-backs avoiding the sweep to the Mariners, preview the next series against the LA Dodgers, and discuss if Corbin Carroll should be optioned to AAA Reno. So a lot to talk about on today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. But first, I wanted to say thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free and available on all platforms. So please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube. So please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. Our goal is to hit 2,000 subs by the All-Star break. So please subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. But now let's get into the podcast and let's talk about the D-backs' most recent series to the Seattle Mariners, because this was not a fun series. I made a little lunch bet wager with one of my coworkers that the D-backs were going to beat the Mariners in this series, and now I have to owe my coworker lunch on Monday, so not happy about that. This D-backs offense, I think, hit a new rock bottom in this series against the Seattle Mariners because it was absolutely putrid. The Mariners pitching, which has been a little up and down this year, I think they got themselves on the right track once again with their performances against the D-backs in this series. George Kirby, all the struggles he might have been dealing with this season, all of it went out the door. I think he righted the ship with his performance against the D-backs in game two. D-backs and the Mariners look like they were on two different planes this series. This D-backs offense could not muster anything against the Mariners pitching. Hancock, Kirby, or Logan Gilbert, it did not matter which starter the Mariners threw out. All of them looked like prime Randy Johnson against the D-backs in this series. And this was probably the worst series that I've ever seen the D-backs offense have. At least in, you could point to any series this year and at least look at one game where the D-backs put up like double-digit runs or whatever. But in this series against the Mariners, this D-backs offense did absolutely nothing. And to be honest, it gave me it like gave me flashbacks of the 2021 D-backs, the 52 win D-backs, where their offense every single day was not good and they never bailed out their pitchers when they had good games. And that was kind of the sentiment this series because your starting pitchers were really good in this series. And it didn't matter because they got zero run support from the D-backs offense. The lineup only scored 5 runs total this series, 1 run apiece through the first 2 games, then 3 runs on Sunday, which thankfully was enough to beat the Mariners on Sunday because 3 runs still isn't anything. The D-backs had 33 strikeouts through 3 games, and in the last 2 games, really racked it up. 12 Ks in game three, 14 Ks in game number 2 against the Seattle Mariners. Great job by those Mariners starting pitchers to really mow down the D-backs. I mean, Emmanuel Hancock was the first guy on Friday, 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 4 strikeouts, only threw 83 pitches. He has struggled this year, did not struggle at all against the D-backs. Then you had George Kirby, who has been a little bit up and down this year. Absolutely perfect command against the D-backs in game 2. 7 innings, 2 hits, 12 Ks, 1 walk allowed, and I believe George Kirby 0 earned runs. And if you look at the whiffs for George Kirby in that game, 23 whiffs on 57 swings. He dominated the D-backs. He was throwing harder than he typically does. His fastball was averaging 96 miles per hour. I mean, he was just throwing it straight down the middle. Him and Logan Gilbert, like, they didn't have to dance around the edges. Like, they were still precise. They were still dotting up the corners, but the movement on their pitches were so good that they just had to throw it straight down the middle. And these D-back swingers and these D-backs hitters were swinging right through the pitches every single time. So great job by the Mariners pitchers. George Kirby in game 2, phenomenal. Logan Gilbert on Sunday also had himself a heck of a game for Seattle. 6.1 innings pitch, 2 earned runs, 9 strikeouts. Tried to do his best George Kirby impression. He had 16 whiffs on 49 swings against the Arizona Diamondbacks. The D-backs offense just absolutely did nothing. Walker and Marte were the only players to have multiple hits in this series. Walker had a hit in every single game. He had a double. He had a home run in game number 3. Then Marte, give him credit. He delivered some late clutch time offense for the D-backs on Sunday, something that we have not seen enough from Arizona this year. 8th inning, man on second, and Ketel Marte delivers a big double to the wall, a clutch hit. We know Ketel Marte and this D-backs offense has been absolutely horrendous in late and close game situations. Whenever it's the 7th inning or later and it's a 1-run ball game, this offense, the numbers have been bad, right? Ketel Marte, the numbers for him in those situations have also been bad. But in this game, he comes through in the clutch and puts the D-backs on top, thankfully, because the way Gilbert and all the other pitchers for Mariners in this series, the way they were pitching, I didn't know if the D-backs were going to be able to muster up enough offense, but Christian Walker and Ketel Marte were the only 2 players with multiple hits in this series, or multiple games with a hit in this series, because Marte only had 2 hits total in this series, but he at least got a hit in the first game and got a hit in the third game. Those were the only 2 players for the D-backs that had hits in multiple games in this series. So the rest of your lineup, they just didn't do enough. Christian Walker had a good series, but the rest of the team did absolutely nothing. 2 for 15 with runners in scoring position in this whole series. The offense has been so feast or famine recently, and I just absolutely hate it. It's either you score 14 runs or you go 3 straight games with 3 runs or less scored. The offense needs to have way more consistency, because what we're seeing right now by this D-backs offense, it's just not going to cut it. And you can't even blame injuries for the lack of offense either, because even though the Perdomos and the Alec Thomases haven't been there, most of this offense has been there. Most of this offense has been intact, and there's no reason why this D-backs offense shouldn't be competent, shouldn't be consistently putting up a lot of runs. I know they're still top 3 in the National League of runs scored right now, but there're just too many games where the D-backs score a lot of runs and then score very few runs the very next day. So we need more balance and consistency from this D-backs offense. We need the lineup to do more. Lourdes Gurriel has gone cold. Eugenio Suarez has been struggling for a while. I know Corbin Carroll and his struggles. The offense this entire series didn't muster up enough hits, struck out a ton, and didn't score enough runs. Yes, the starting pitching was really good, but it does not matter if you get 0 run support. And in the next series against the LA Dodgers, which we're going to preview next, that Dodgers offense is very elite. And so this D-backs offense is going to need to step it up to keep pace with what the LA Dodgers can do. And we'll preview the next series against the LA Dodgers in segment number 2. If you need any parts for your car, then the place you're going to want to go is eBay Motors, because passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Also, want to talk to you guys about my favorite mobile game out right now, Monopoly Go, because we've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift your head up, and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friend's money as I possibly can. That's right, the smash hit mobile game, Monopoly Go, lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone, anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. Play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboards. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go. Now free on the App Store or Google Play Store. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. If you like the show, please follow me on Twitter at CreatorThomas24 for the personal account, or look up Locked On Diamondbacks on both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. But now let's talk about the next series against the LA Dodgers. Talk about what the D-backs need to do to win that one, because this is a big series for the D-backs. Yes, it's still early. Yes, it's a long season, but early season games matter. The fact that the D-backs are what? 13 and 16 right now does matter, because all the games at the beginning of the season definitely hold importance at the end of the year when you look at the standings. Despite playing 162 games, the final month of the year, the games are damn close. The standings are damn close, right? You look at the final standings at the end of every year, and it comes down to 1 to 2 to 3 games. And so that's why these wins and losses at the beginning of the season do matter. Don't listen to your friends that are like, you know what? It's only April. I don't care about the win loss. I don't care about the standings. The standings matter at the beginning of the season. Yes, where they are right now may not be where they are at the end of the year, but racking up as many wins as possible throughout the entirety of the MLB season is what your team should do, because once you get to that final month, you're going to wish you had more wins on your record than what you had previously. And too many teams below games at the beginning of the season because they don't take these early season games important enough. And for the D-backs, they need to start taking these early season games more important. And that's why this series against the LA Dodgers is so important, because they need to continue to keep pace in the NL West. Right now, the D-backs are like 4.5 games back of the Dodgers in the NL West standings. And if you go in and win the series against the Dodgers, you are able to creep up a little bit closer in the NL West race. And more importantly, you won't fall behind any further in this race, because the Giants, the Padres, the whole NL West really has been pretty vulnerable this year. That's including the LA Dodgers. The Dodgers have been good this year, but they haven't been great. There's been a lot of points this season where the Dodgers have shown their weaknesses. And so to go against the Dodgers at this moment in time, the Dodgers are definitely gettable right now, but the D-backs are not in their peak form. So when I'm looking at this series, yes, the Dodgers are gettable, but the D-backs also are probably playing their worst brand of baseball that we've seen all year. So if you're the D-backs and you want to increase your confidence at all for your team going forward, this could be the series to do that. You're playing an NL West opponent. You're playing your biggest rival in the NL West. You're playing one of the biggest rivals in the sport, right? There's probably no team that you hate more than the LA Dodgers. And so you beat the Dodgers despite you playing your worst brand of baseball. That should immediately give you a confidence boost. And hopefully you can carry that going into this next series against the San Diego Padres right after that. So I would love to see the D-backs get up and beat the Dodgers in this series because I think it would help so much for their mental and their psyche going forward. But to do that, the D-backs, they're going to need their offense to step up. Their offense, what they just did against the Seattle Mariners, you cannot do that against the LA Dodgers. The Dodgers this year offensively have arguably been the best in the league, right there with the Braves, right there. I mean, with the runs scored, they're ahead of the D-backs. And I would say this Dodgers offense is ahead of the D-backs, but you definitely can make the case that the Dodgers offense is the best in the National League, right there with the Atlanta Braves. Will Smith, the catcher, fantastic season. Freddie Freeman, fantastic season. Mookie Betts, fantastic. Muncie's having a solid season. Otani's been a stud. Teoscar Hernandez has been good. Like, there are just so many dudes up and down that Dodgers lineup that is just scary and locked in. They got 3 MVP candidates right now in their lineup in Will Smith, Otani, and Mookie Betts, who are playing out of their freaking mind right now. So the D-backs offense is going to have to be better than what it's been recently because it just has not been good enough. And it started out consistently good. Everyone in that lineup was hitting the ball pretty well, but over the last 3 weeks, this offense has definitely regressed to the mean, and we're going to need to see some early season D-backs offense in this series against one of the best offenses in Major League Baseball. And we're also going to need to see the D-back starters continue to pitch well to limit that Dodgers offense because in this series against the Seattle Mariners, the starters were fantastic. Brandon Pfaadt on Sunday had himself one of the best starts of his career. Career high, 11 strikeouts, 6 innings, 2 earned runs. Pfaadt was fantastic against the Mariners, and he generated 17 whiffs on 46 swings. Slade Ciccone, he has been a revelation for the D-backs since being called up. 6 innings, 1 earned run, 8 Ks on just 84 pitches in game 2 against the Seattle Mariners. He has also looked good, 11 whiffs on 36 swings. You won't see either of those guys against the LA Dodgers. We will see Tommy Henry in game number 1 against James Paxton. Tommy Henry is coming off his best start of the season because recently against the St. Louis Cardinals, 6 innings, 1 earned run, 6 strikeouts. So Tommy Henry is at least coming off his best start, and we would like to see that momentum continue. Jordan Montgomery in game 2 against Landon Knack. Like, the big thing for the D-backs in this series, not only do you want your offense to step up because of how good that Dodgers offense is, but this is also one of the most vulnerable times for that Dodgers rotation. You get James Paxton in game 1, you get Landon Knack in game number 2. Yamamoto won't be easy in game number 3, but you at least get Zach Gallen on the mound to match Yamamoto in that game number 3. So this is a big series for the D-backs if they want to keep pace in the NL West. This will be the series to do that. You will get to go against some of the weaker starters in this Dodgers rotation in the Knacks and the James Paxtons of the world. Even though they're having good seasons, I think you would rather face those guys than the Glasnows and the Yamamotos in game 1 and game number 2. The offense is going to need to step up because that Dodgers offense will be showing up in this series. So the D-backs offense will need to respond. And against a NL West opponent, someone that the D-backs see often, I do think their offense will show up in this series. I don't know if the D-backs will win this series against the Dodgers, but I do think it will be close. I think it will be competitive. I think the D-backs, despite them not doing anything the last couple weeks for me to really have any optimism in the D-backs, because it's the Dodgers, such a big rival for the D-backs, I think Arizona is going to step up in a big way in this series. And one player the D-backs would love to step up in a big way is Corbin Carroll because he's been struggling so much this season. I actually want to have a discussion in segment number 3 if he should be optioned to AAA Reno. But before we have that conversation, if you want to place a little wager on the D-backs to beat the Dodgers in the next series, then the best place to do that is, of course, FanDuel, because it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball season is in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. My favorite thing to do on the FanDuel app is the same game parlay. Whenever the D-backs are playing, give me the D-backs money line, give me Ketel Marte over on total bases, and give me a Christian Walker home run. The money line leg of the parlay hasn't been hitting as much as I want to recently, and that's why I haven't been seeing money hit my bank account. But maybe money will hit your bank account because you're better at betting than me. And if you want to see money hit your bank account, then what are you waiting for? Visit fanduel.com/lockdown and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right. Let's get back into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Let's talk about if Corbin Carroll should be considered being optioned to Triple A Reno, because we know the struggles for Corbin Carroll this season. He has been horrendous. It's been my word of the day on this podcast: horrendous, horrible, whatever word you want to use under the source to describe Corbin Carroll's play at the plate this season. It has not been good. Or with Alec Thomas, his return getting a little bit closer. Sounds like he's been doing a lot of hitting. The next step for him is just running. He's probably coming back in the next couple of weeks. And with that being the case, if Corbin Carroll doesn't start to turn it around, should he be sent down to AAA? Because a guy like Jake McCarthy, he's playing pretty well right now. He's swinging the bat pretty fine for himself. I believe his batting average right now is still like 300 or whatever on the season. One thing I do hate, we saw this in the game today. Man gets on first. We saw this in the eighth inning. Man gets on first, no way. Man gets on first, no outs. I don't want to see Jake McCarthy laying down a bunt. If it's man on second, leadoff double for an inning, and then Jake McCarthy's up, I'm okay with the bunt in that situation. Man on second, no outs. But I don't like the man on first, no outs with Jake McCarthy batting 300, trying to lay down a bunt. Just let Jake McCarthy swing in that situation, and good things could probably happen. So that's my one note that I want to say. Stop making Jake McCarthy bunt with one man on first base and there's no outs on the scoreboard. Jake McCarthy should not be bunting in that situation. And with him swinging the bat pretty well, it's hard to justify him being sent down to AAA with Corbin Carroll playing the way that he's playing right now. Once Alec Thomas gets back, if this trend continues for Corbin Carroll, then maybe it's him. Maybe it's Carroll that should be sent down to Reno instead of Jake McCarthy or an Alec Thomas. Corbin Carroll, I just want him to get back on track, and maybe Reno could be the place where he could refine his swing. We know offense is the name of the game in Reno. Don't look at those pitchers' ERAs. Don't take too much out of batting averages because it is a hitter-friendly league. The stats are juiced for the offense players, and they look bad for the pitchers. So for Corbin Carroll, could be the perfect opportunity for him to just get some confidence, get a little bit of a flow and groove going once again. His confidence just looks so shook up there at the plate. You could just tell every time he swings the bat and records an out, he just frustrated and upset with himself because he's searching. I don't think he really knows what's wrong. Like, I don't really know what's wrong with Corbin Carroll. And the sad thing is, if you kind of look at his stats since he got hurt last year with the shoulder injury, the numbers are not good for Corbin Carroll. So you wonder how much of it is still, if there's anything lingering with the shoulder, how much of it is just mental with the fact that he has dealt with shoulder problems throughout his career. Is it just something that's stuck in his psyche? I don't know. Feels more like Corbin Carroll has the yips more than anything when looking at what has been a problem for him this year, because obviously when you look at some of the numbers, they are really bad for Corbin Carroll. He does have the career best strikeout rate and walk rate of his career. Like, he's not striking out a ton and he's getting on base a good amount via the walk. You'd like to see both of that. That tells you the plate discipline is there for Corbin Carroll, which is kind of the craziest part because you look at the K rate, you look at the walk rate, you look at just the amount of times he's making contact with pitches in the zone, the amount of times he's chasing pitches outside the zone. Like all the play discipline stuff tells you Corbin Carroll is swinging at the type of pitches he should be swinging at. He's not going outside the strike zone. He's not playing outside of himself. Like, even when Corbin Carroll is striking out, I feel like he's still striking out on pitches in the zone. The biggest issue for Corbin Carroll is the quality of contact he's making. He's still making contact, but the quality is just not there. The hard contact stats are not there. He's not barreling up the ball like you want him to. Like, I think that's been the biggest issue. There's just no power in his swing right now. Everything is soft dribblers or soft pop ups. There just seems to be no power in his swing right now. And I don't know why that is. The launch angle is still right there with what it's been with his career numbers. I think the barrel percentage is right there with his career numbers as well. Like, I don't know why the contact quality is not as good this year as it's been in the years past. He's not hitting the fastball this year like he has in the past. Like the fastball numbers have been, again, horrendous for Corbin Carroll this year. And I wonder how much of it just goes back to that injury he had last season. Jake McCarthy and Alec Thomas were both sent down to Reno last year when they were struggling for the Arizona Diamondbacks. And I do think it helped out a little bit. So for Corbin Carroll, who are just so clearly lost right now at the plate, I don't know if doing the same thing every single day of just sending him out there and hoping things will change will actually make things change for Corbin Carroll. We might actually have to switch it up. And by switching it up, could just be sending him down to Reno and face some different pitchers and be in a more hitter friendly environment. So for Corbin Carroll, we'll give him until Alec Thomas comes back. But if things don't change for Carroll, then I do think the option of sending him down to AAA could be the best for everyone involved. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Back at it tomorrow with more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And we'll be talking to you guys after the D-backs take down the Dodgers in game number 1.